Good. So welcome everybody to this Women Being Talks 5. Today the topic is female health, and today we have Dr. Rita Bencivenga from Trinity College in Dublin, and Sidra Abbas, who is a nurse and also a researcher in Pakistan, and they will be discussing several topics related to COVID-19 and female health today. So I just hand over to you and you can start your conversation. Thank you so much for being here today.
So shall I start?
Sidra and Rita, could you unmute your microphones so we can?
Yeah, it's okay.
Perfect.
Maybe I will start. May I share my PowerPoint presentation, the first slide? Yeah. And then I will pass the, just a second. So thank you for inviting me. This is a very interesting opportunity, and I wanted to share with you this image because Sidra, I met Sidra at a conference in Bangkok a few months ago, and so I'm very glad to have this opportunity to discuss with her about this interesting topic. We were given 4 questions. And we agreed, Sidra and I met online already. We agreed to follow the order. And so I will say something about, to introduce the first question, that is our views in our country and also worldwide on different approaches to female health. And I must precise that, yes, I'm working at the Trinity College, but I'm in Italy now, and I've been in Italy since the beginning of this pandemic event. And because I was here for my research activities and I remain blocked here. So I will make references to what is going on in Italy, not in Ireland, because I'm not there at the moment. So health is not merely the absence of disease, of course, and is a state of complex physical, mental, and social well-being. And this is how the World Health Organization defines it. But more specifically, there are a number of key factors that have been found to influence whether people are healthy or unhealthy. And you see them in the slides. And so you see that there is the healthcare services, there is gender, but there are a number of other factors. Then I would like to say something about women, the word women, because as one word is not enough to define health, it's difficult to speak about women and nothing else without adding something else. Because even if we choose merely biological sex as the main criterion to define women, which is debatable, but is not the case now, we still have several variables to take into consideration: the country, socioeconomic status, age, sexual orientation. So saying women as a general category, including approximately 51% of the worldwide population, is not very helpful. So I can speak about women living in industrialized countries where I live. And in general, in these countries, the gender gap in life expectancy, which is one of the major criteria, is now in our favor. But still, people's health is influenced not just by their biology, but also by conditions such as poverty, employment, family responsibilities. So we see a variety of situations also in EU countries. And we know that the COVID-19 crisis hits harder more women than men. And this is due to low pay, job loss, more unpaid care work, but not women, all women versus men, all men. So, and we come to female health before giving to Sidra the possibility to comment on this first question. And so, can we speak of different approaches to female health? Gender and not only sex affects the way patients interact with the healthcare systems, and now with the pandemics and its effects. And it is easy to understand that our socioeconomic status, our condition of native, of immigrant person, our age may have a strong influence on the attention we get from the healthcare systems. And in Italy, I will refer in particular to age, in particular, because in Italy, we started claiming the importance of protecting elderly people who are more at risk of dying of COVID-19. And in some regions, we ended with a massive number of deaths of elderly people due to the decision to send the COVID-19 patients discharged from hospitals to special wards in nursing homes. So if at the beginning fewer women were dying, and this is a well-known fact for which there are not yet answers, now there is more balance, unfortunately, in a sense, as in Italian nursing homes, the 75% of guests are women. So we should reflect on the variability of our ethical attitude towards the elderly, or even our unconscious bias in the decision to send the majority of men recovering from COVID-19, but still potentially infectious, to nursing homes where a majority of elderly women were living decent lives. So now, Sidra, it's up to you.
Thank you so much for inviting me for this event, and I'm very glad for the Miss Monica Martin to given me a second chance to have an interaction through this big platform of being women. So I really appreciate it. So if we are talking from this platform, so it's really helpful for us because we are connecting from all over the world on one platform, and we are working for the women issues, and we can make our own space within the cyberspace, which is very important for this time because everybody is staying at home and working from home. So it's a much more important to have collaboration internationally with each other, which is very best effort by the being women and connecting us around the world. So if I talk about the question, what are the approaches for female health in my country or worldwide? So in my view, the mainly belief develops into the social, political, and economical impact of the COVID-19, which is potentially disproportionate women and girls all around the world. So like in the health sector, in the education sector, from the aspect of the economical empowerment and facing the gender-based violence in this situation. Like in my country, how the education sector is combating with this disease or engaging with their students. They have started online classes with their students and some kind of healthy activities, some kind of sports events through online system, through the technology based by the computers, by the smartphones, and with the private-public partnership, you can say. And for the children who are underage, for the 5 or 10 years, government has started a one and other channel for the children who can watch their own channel according to their age and content, and it's kind of healthy activity for those as well. In my country, mostly women are the household workers and they work with the less wages as well. So what government is doing, how the government is combating with this issue, government has started some kind of loan scheme, and with the name the name of one of the loan scheme is SARS program, and the other is PM COVID Relief Fund. Those who are giving money to those women who are living under the line of poverty. If we are talking about the gender-based issues, the helpline are working, and the police is also helping to those women who are facing gender-based violence. But even in my country, they are much more like hindrance are much more lack. You can say the lack which is facing my countries, they are not giving awareness about family planning. They are not focusing or emphasizing to use the family planning method during this time, and they are not, they don't have such kind of open discussion or awareness messages or campaigns for the intimate partner violence, which is increasing day by day because everybody is staying at home, and almost 40% of the gender-based violence cases has been reported within this time. So it's really important to talk about these issues.
Shall we move to the second question, Sidra?
Yeah.
Is that okay? So the
Yeah.
second question is, what are your key takeaways regarding gender and health and COVID-19? And my reflection is that I see even more than before the importance of intersectionality and of gender-specific medicine. So what I say is addressed to researchers, but is valid even if we are simply patients or informal caregivers or relatives of someone who is experiencing a disease. And I think that COVID-19 can be an excellent training because it allows us to see the making of in a new disease whose consequences at medium and long term are still unknown to all of us, unfortunately. So we can compare what has happened in the past and monitor that a gender-specific approach is applied and that intersectionality is included in all the research activities. And if we cannot work directly towards this end because we are not researchers, we can still ask questions always to health personnel, in social media, to politicians, to all those who have the power and the will to change a path. So about intersectionality, I'm worried about this focus on women and men, because in this way we risk missing diverse experiences and we reduce the analysis to a black and white message. So I often hear a sentence like, pandemics affect women and men differently, and usually this is followed by, and men are more affected. Okay, of course, this is positive in a way because it's true, and it's important that people are aware of that. And it's true because we see what's going on, but even more because we know what happened after the previous epidemics, SARS and Ebola, where really women were much more affected, even if those were epidemics and not pandemics. However, since several years have passed since the last epidemic, now we have progressed in a better understanding on how to analyze social and health-related phenomena. That's why a gender analysis is important, but it's not enough. We should move to the intersectional analysis because we must include other factors at the individual level, but also at the structural level, such as employment, environment, politics, precariousness. So we should observe different experiences of different groups of women, of men, of gender diverse people, and we should avoid the two macro categories. And we must avoid considering that all what happens to one woman can become immediately what happens to women. And gender-specific medicine is another aspect that is, I think, more and more important, is the study of how a disease may differ between men and women, of course, in terms of prevention, clinical science, etc., and so on. And the application of gender medicine is not a new medical discipline. In this, in a sense, is similar to gender studies, in a sense that is transversal to the existing disciplines, medical disciplines, of course, and is a new orientation of the entire medicine. And we are speaking very much in these days about finding a cure, finding a vaccine. This is important, but gender medicine refers also to the training of healthcare personnel. And to several other aspects. And we must monitor that the COVID-19 is monitored in all these aspects. And also I would like to add, and then I give the floor to Sidra, that we must remember that the gender-specific medicine is not limited to medical doctors and researchers, because it includes all those who gravitate around the health sector. So we have pharmacologists, decision makers, health managers, economists, bioethicists, nurses, physical therapists, speech therapists, social workers, psychologists, so even formal caregivers. So those whose role is recognized as able to operate within healthcare and society to tackle inequalities, because our final end is to avoid inequalities in what will happen after this, during and after this pandemic. So Sidra, up to you.
Okay. In my point of view, as you know, that the impact of COVID-19 is not for equal to all population, but there is much more need of gender response to such kind of worsening situation to prevent from more worsening for the environment or for the humanity. So as you know that gender can be some kind of vulnerable factor according to race, color, creed, and ethnicity as well. So there is need to contextualize the data according to gender perspective, as it is coming out from the present data that most men are affected by the COVID-19, either because of sociological reasons or because of the biological reasons. Sociological reasons can be because they are they use tobacco, they have alcohols, or they have such kind of sometimes masculinity of often discourage men to go and follow the health kind of practices. So if we talk about the biological reasons can be assumed that women or girls have much more immunity than the men. So these kind of reasons are important to discuss. So there is much more need to give a response and have a gender analysis and use the gender lens to make or form any kind of policies for the future. So on the other perspective, we can also say that yes, there is intersectionality and some kind of rationale that suppose if a household of like within my country that have a rich culture and traditional system, if one of the member of the family, which is a male member, if that person is affected by the COVID-19 or any kind of disease, it means not the only one person or only man is being affected, it means the whole family is being suffering just because of his disease, because everyone is depending upon that person and that is the breadwinner of the family. So ultimately or indirectly, the burden of that home health shift or transfer to the shoulder of the women. So that's very important if we talk about the gender lens and focus to make things or contextualize the data from the gender perspective. I must say that if we are talking about the invention of the vaccine or developing of the vaccine from all over the world, from the UK, from the developing countries, so there are other things that, like the UK president say that everybody have to go through this kind of disease because everybody have a much more exposure and they are living this in this planet and are exposed to this environment. So that one of the strategy of that government is that everybody have to go through with that phase and that every person have their own immunity and that person will ultimately develop the herd immunity of, to combat this COVID-19. But the things which is important, I want to emphasize on that is why the government or worldwide, the pregnant women, which are the significant portion of the population and giving birth to the next generation, and they have been excluded from the part of the taking risk-benefit analysis for the vaccine. And again, there are only the men who are being at the trial of the vaccines are the subject of the vaccine. So it means the major or very significant portion of being women have been excluded from making up the vaccination. This is important also. So if we talk about my country, how the traditional system is going on, while everybody is staying at home and the young girls are doing chores, doing their traditional work, and performing their traditional roles within the household, and they are that their female members are focusing on to learn the traditional role within this time. So ultimately, what will affect after this phase, there may be a chance of increasing dropout rate of the women or young girls, because within this time they are focusing to learn the traditional role, and after this COVID phase, they will face the burnout of the economy. They will face the burnout of the economic crisis within the family or within the country. So there are much more chances to increase the dropout rate of the young girls from the school or from the education system as well. So I think this COVID-19 has also some kind of brighter aspect as well. So everybody has its own time. They are spending time with themselves, and there is being women, although this is stereotype, this is some kind of superstitions, you can say. Mainly women spend time for the shopping and these kind of things. So this is the time, like, we have saved our money and we are not going out. We are saving our money for our future as well. So then other thing of the brighter side of this COVID-19 is that this pandemic has deconstruct and reconstructs the life of every person, and has given time, and it has given a new energy to put your efforts with some kind of resting phase into the new passion, into the new things. So there is also a brighter side, another brighter side of this COVID-19, like being women, because I guess this is a kind of natural push to for the women to make a women-led initiatives within this time. Although women are, since ages, women are fighting for their rights, for their gender equality, for their issues of the gender-based violence, for the regarding the issues of discrimination, gender division of labor. So I think the nature has come to rescue us being women. So there is need to utilize our time and make a women-led initiatives during this COVID-19 and this kind of pandemic.
So the third topic we address is to give an idea of the perspectives in relation to female health and COVID-19. In my case, from an academic perspective, and in Sidra's case, from her specific experience as a nurse. And what I can say is that a fact that we know for sure is that research has historically focused on male subjects or participants, and this at a worldwide level, so in Europe, in whatever. And in Europe, since 2014, we have the clinical trials regulation that requires that consideration of gender in clinical trials is observed. And it should help address concerns about the drugs being mainly tested on men. We know this happens very often, which can mask adverse side effects that are more common among or exclusive to women. So we cannot risk that a cure or a vaccine for COVID-19 bring the same problems. We know how recent are the information about women having different symptoms for a heart attack, or that fact that Asperger's syndrome and autistic syndrome have different symptoms in young women. So we must really monitor that. And we see that although we have this document from the EU, and now this gender-informed approach should be more common, we still see in several researches that data are not disaggregated by sex, for example, and this is very serious. And I would like also to say something about the focus that we have had until now on hospitals and intensive care units, at least in the countries where I'm following what's going on. It has been like that. In the last 2 months, we were all concentrated on what was going on in hospitals and in particular in intensive care units. But there are other settings, and now these settings start appearing. And I think, for example, that, about the pulmonary rehabilitation that many patients, those who were more seriously affected, are in need of. And so intervention from physical therapists, from speech pathologists, we start understanding what risks these people are facing, and we start understanding that maybe for some people, they will have to face some chronic condition in the future. So we are really in a situation where it's unclear what will happen in the future. And that's why recognizing gender differences, adopting an intersectional approach is very important to outline programs, to organize the offer of services, to direct research for the future, also to analyze statistical data, because the disease is not solved once you leave the intensive care unit. So there is much more that has to happen, and this much more involves a different type of services, home services, ambulatory services, so even people taking care of their own health through personalized exercise that they have to perform at home. So also we need to promote interdisciplinary approaches. We know that in the academic field, often we tend to remain really close in our field. And I think that this is another interesting connection with gender studies, because gender studies are an excellent example because have been interdisciplinary since their origin. So we see a variety of situations, and also we must consider that we are speaking about health now, but we know the impact on the economic and political level, of course, of this pandemic that has also influenced what happened in the health sector. But we must remember that the medical, economic, and political levels are all interconnected. They are not silos. So are we surprised by the insufficient gender sensitivity in medical research and healthcare? I would say certainly not, because this is only the consequence of the underrepresentation of women in health governance and decision-making. That's why it's even more important to speak, to send comments, to send questions, to ask whenever possible if what is being done is respectful of different genders and also different social and economic situations. Sidra, what is your comment about this from your point of view as a nurse?
Yeah, it may suppose that the healthcare system of my country is not well managed, although it has also some kind of deficiencies and insufficiencies within this healthcare system. So as a nursing professional myself, I can't help how this COVID setting is placing the nurses as a compensated women identity within the workplace or healthcare system. Different line workers are pressurized to work with insufficient protective gears and dismissal of the sick leave, which is putting them and their families at a greater risk. So it is important to understand that there is no cookie cutter version of the nursing, and no one all size fits in the nursing field. Good or bad, right and wrong of medicine has specialized, but the nurses has to follow traditional suit. Within the healthcare system, you can see that there are novice nurses and are expert nurses as well, which is making it more precise profession. But on the other hand, one can't continue with this kind of situation if you are making this COVID setting and defining this COVID setting as a fatal, and making the situation is worse, and also saying that this is the year of 2020 for the nurse and midwife. We have much more demand for the nurses as well, and creating a willingness shortage for the nurses with this kind of given situation, and although explaining that the COVID-19 is a much more dangerous for everyone. So this is a kind of conflict for the government as well, because they are saying something else and doing something else. So this is kind of conflict from my side as well. Like this situation is not the way this year is being allocated for the nurse and midwife for this time. So in my case, you can also say that the media is also portraying the nursing as a heroes, but we are in the same boat and we know what is happening within this system. So there is much more need to raise their voices, because this profession is like these nurses within this kind of situation much more need of some kind of social counseling through online sessions, and there is much more need to give some kind of packages after this pandemic has over, and there is need to make much more some kind of preventive measures. If you are saying you have to provide, but I mean the government have to provide some kind of things if the COVID-19 is very dangerous for all, because this is against all the humanity if you are saying something else and you are doing something else. So I have, for this to cater such kind of issues, I have conducted an online survey with the title Supporting Nursing During this COVID-19 in Pakistan, which is going on. So I have collected the 100 responses. So most of them from I have almost 14 or 15 variable in that online survey. Among the 100 respondents, 40.2% said that there is still a state of discrimination with the physician within the healthcare system. So which is again promoting the gender division of labor for nurses who are the frontline workers within the healthcare system. Among the 100 respondents, 42.8% explains that there is also media is not portraying the image of the nursing profession, although there has some kind of better recognition within the society. So I have, and among the 100 respondents, almost 50% claims that people think that nurses are some kind of infectious agent itself, because they are doing their job within such kind of exposed environment according to their health, and you have to stay away from those nurses, which is very painful for every healthcare worker, because they are working quarterly. And just because of these issues, because government is very less interested in protection of the frontline workers, the cases of the COVID-19 among health workers are increasing day by day. So most of the cases are becoming positive within the healthcare system, and within even for the doctors and even for the nurses, because there is always a kind of discrimination among doctors and nurses while you are working within the healthcare system. So these are my views. So over to you for the next question.
Yeah. How we were asked to comment on our views in the feminization of healthcare. And I have, again, two comments. The first is that, yes, we know that traditionally healthcare providers and healthcare leaders have nurtured and have been appreciated and valued by traits such as heroism, competition, independence. Nowadays, as people live longer with more complex conditions and more chronicity, there are other characteristics that are becoming more prominent, such as interdependence, empathy, team working. And I think that unfortunately, we still tend to associate the traits to masculine or feminine approaches. And I think that this was clear in seeing what happened in articles and in comments online and on television, emphasizing that countries with female leaders were managing better the pandemic than those led by men. But if we look at differences among men, the differences are impressive, because an attitude like that of Trump or Bolsonaro cannot be compared with the attitude of, for example, of Conte, the Italian prime minister, which is totally different and more aligned to what we could consider a nurturing and caring attitude toward all Italians. So once again, we may call feminization of healthcare the delivering of care in more team-based ways, characterized by collaboration, the use of networks. But this approach can be seen as a contrast to the patriarchal, hierarchical model that we traditionally associate with the masculine approach. But I would prefer stop using the terms masculine and feminine, because once again, this keeps us in a polarized vision. And now we know that the majority of personnel in the health sector is made by women, nurses. The majority are women, and they are heroines. I mean, it's incredible what happened, at least here in Italy, but I know in other countries, people applause from the windows and the terraces. And so this term that we see persons working in as heroines, as heroes, and this has nothing to do with being a man or a woman. So I think that nowadays we must consider flexibility, fluidity, smoothness. These are our guiding principles in learning to manage a new disease. We cannot remain stuck on this polarization, a masculine or a feminine approach. And we don't know yet where COVID-19 will bring us. Who will be the next target group? Will be the same as now if it's in October, November, as we are told there will be another critical situation, or this time will be different population. We know nothing at the moment. We know almost nothing about the long-term consequences for those who have been already affected. And even more important, we don't have a clear idea of the psychological impact on those who were not affected by COVID-19, but suffered because they were closed at home, they were isolated for such a long time. People followed by psychiatrists, for example, that have been cut suddenly by the services taking care of them. So if we keep saying that the management styles of men and women as a whole are different, we lead women and men to identify with one model or another. We give them the idea that these are innate traits, while we know that management styles are socially constructed. So we influence people in adopting a set of behaviors instead of applying a mix of both styles, or even better, what I would like to see, moving toward different approaches with it. Because again, I think that in this age plays an important role. Older people have been influenced since their youth by this binary approach. And we know that the younger people have more freedom, can more easily create new paths, less stereotyped. And let's think about the telehealth. Telehealth will become widespread compared to what it was until now, thanks to this pandemic event. But we cannot yet imagine what this will bring to the medical field in terms of management style, when we will work at a distance also in the medical field. So again, to make a comment about the numerous task forces that are supporting the Italian government, I would be more worried about the average age than by the gender imbalance, which is not okay because there is a huge gender imbalance, but is less worrying, I think, in terms of results of course not in terms of justice and equality. And the last thing that I would like to say is this war metaphor in COVID-19, because we have an enemy, we have a strategy, we have frontline warriors, we have the home front, we have the traitors, those who do not obey to what the government tells us, and so on. And also there is this sense of urgency that allows the governments to take any decision to modify, influence our lives. But I think that with COVID-19, we need different other metaphors. And if we must learn to live with it for at least several months, but could be years, or maybe forever, who knows? Some biologists say that it will become part of our lives, like the influenza is now. So we need a different set of metaphors that is also more convenient, because we must learn to trust each other. We must reflect on the extent to which exploiting animals and nature brought us to this situation. So I think it is like having been shipwrecked on a desert island. So we are not in Star Wars. I think we are more in a television series like Lost. No? We must learn to work together to survive on this island where we are surrounded by nature, by animals, and we must learn to trust each other. So I think it would be wiser to address the medical crisis, interlacing this with other global emergencies, such as climate change and the depletion of the planet, definitely, because now nobody is speaking about global emergencies and climate change, while until January this was at the forefront of any discussion. But I think we cannot now stop dealing with that to deal with the pandemic, because all goes together, unfortunately for us. But even if we can manage it in a positive way, I think this will be one of the positive consequences of this disaster.
Yeah, you are right there. Like, you have talked about much more important issues that we need to discuss. In my view, in my country, mostly women are living under the line of poverty, and are the home-based workers are working with the less wages, you can say. So according to if we are talking about feminization of the healthcare, so what is the need of the time? Like, there is need to put cash within the women's hand, so then they will be able to spend money on themselves, seek healthcare practices, and spend money on their family and the loved ones. So there is need to target and include those women who are the needy ones. Secondly, there is much more needed to incorporate the women scientists who are microbiologists, who are environmentalists, who are virologists. They must be our gender specialists. They must be a part of such kind of policies which are going to be implemented or which are already going on. And along this emphasis, by putting the women scientists within this phase to combat the disease, there is much more need to monitor these policies by the human rights commissions and human rights agencies. Like, are they really tackling the issues of the women? Are they not violating the human rights of everybody, and everybody is being implemented, are being a part of this, are also a part of this policy, are getting benefit and getting some relief during this pandemic. So this is very important. So there is also a much more need to encourage or include you can say the local or stakeholder or civil society members to be a part of such kind of initiatives, and make some initiative for those who are the needy one. And there must be specific settings for the women, and there is also a need to raise a voice by emphasize or pressurized by the women political members to highlight their issues properly and address those issues properly and emphasize government to cater the needs of women who are pregnant, who are receiving maternal child health care, and they must follow their healthcare practices and they must go for their antenatal care during this pandemic. Then there will be a safe maternal and child health care for those during this situation and then later on as well. So there is much more need to develop and online digital network from with the collaboration of all international members, and to make their voices and raise their voices during within the cyberspace and develop their own identity and work like this is a kind of digital movement from the women within the cyberspace. Although the women are also facing the issues of gender-based violence and facing the issues of discrimination, facing the issues of gender subordination. So it's been ages. So this is only the way where a woman can raise their voices and make their voices digital through the digital system. So one thing is very important, which I need to discuss, that if any government is making policies worldwide, so it is important, okay, we are dealing with the situation with this, are controlling this pandemic within the time frame, but there is much more need to make such kind of policies like post-COVID setting policies are much more important to cater during this time, because every country know that pandemic will go on till this month, suppose for till this October, this November and December, but policies should be made according to the not this situation only, but also give some importance to the setting which will be after, which will have an after effect of this COVID-19 to all the people or all this country. So lastly, I want to add that as I have talked about the post-COVID settings or post-COVID policies, much care should be given to the needs of the women or young girls. So everybody is talking about the social issues, economical issues, psychological health, maternal child health, and no one is like much more giving importance to during this time to the younglings who are your future generations, who can be your scientists, who can be your teachers, who can be your doctors, who can be your nurses, who can be a policy makers of any country. So it is important to engage those younglings and make them a part of such policies, so they know that what is going on or how they have to tackle or they have to survive after this pandemic, of the situation on all countries. So that's all.
So Monica, we did our homework.
Amazing. Thank you so much. It was such a rich conversation. I just wanted to ask the people who have joined here today to hear you, if anyone has any question that or something that they would like to ask. I asked in the group chat, but no one asked. So I suppose that we are fine. So I think that you covered a lot, and it was really good. Your perspectives are really, it was really good to get like two perspectives of you that are like intersected at the same time, from different backgrounds, and it was really, really good to have you here today. I would like to thank you so much.
I have a question.
Yes.
Before we close out. Yeah, I was very well interested in the whole intersectionality conversation, but also I wanted to add, what are your views on post-colonial response, specifically in developing countries, how we are inheriting some sort of way of seeing the world and responding to the world. Like I'm from Puerto Rico, and I'm currently in Mexico, and there's been a lot of backlash to the government of Mexico for not following, like what the United States policy or way of behaving towards the pandemic should respond. And I was wondering, with this gender perspective that we need to also be intersectional, what are your views on also you know, the proper way that women can, you know, break free from the chains of what's expected from us from the North. Yeah, that's my question.
I must say that a pivotal moment for me was were two experiences I made just before the pandemic. I went to that conference in Bangkok where I met Sidra, and 2 months later to a conference in New Delhi, and that was very interesting for me because I'm used to gravitate around the EU because this is where I live. I have worked in many EU-funded projects, so I know the EU probably more than the average citizen. But apart from that, I've been as a tourist in some places, but it's not. And what was really important to me, because in Bangkok in particular, there were only 4 women arriving from Europe. Not arriving from it. Three of us were living in Bangkok and working in Bangkok or in one of the neighboring countries. So I was technically the only person who really arrived from Europe, is from Europe and arrived from Europe. And after a while, I understood that I was considered as the representative of a feminism described in a way that does not correspond to what to me is feminism. So, and that was triggered very interesting reflections. And I'm not an expert in post-colonial studies. I think mainly because in Italy they are not developed yet, very well developed. And also because our history has not developed in that sense. There is no reflection. We have a past as colonial. So I'm not familiar, but I remember that, and it's clear to me now that after those 2 experiences in Bangkok and in New Delhi, I'm more cautious of what I say, because I don't want in any way to give the impression that I have something to teach, something to show, or to bring people toward my perspective. I respect very much different approaches. Then we can sit around the table, even virtually, and discuss if we have common limits that we want to. Is violence a common limit? If we can agree on that, or maybe not, I don't know. We should sit and discuss. But I think that is really, and I noticed that after those 2 experiences, when I read comments or articles, I'm more impatient when I read something that assumes. That's why I keep repeating we cannot say women, because it doesn't mean anything, women. And that is a danger. It's a danger also because gives the idea that we have similar desires, interests, needs, problems, which is not. I didn't want to go in detail on my personal experience, but when the question arrived, what is your take-home message from the pandemic? My main message to me personally is I touched with my hands how privileged I am. My life was almost not affected for several reasons. My age, how my family is composed, where I live, what I do. The fact also that I'm an introvert person. So in any case, I like to lay on the couch, reading books, watching movies. So for me, it was not so different from, thanks God there are the dogs, so I leave the house once a day. But I touched the privilege. And when I read about news articles, newspapers, or I see on television, or I listen to what Sidra is telling, I touch even more this privilege. And now I know that I have to use this privilege, because otherwise it's wasted if I don't do anything with the privilege that I have. So I must find a way somehow to use this privilege. So not to be put in the same basket with women facing a desperate situation, because there are women facing a desperate situation, and I'm not one of that women. of those women. So I must find a way to somehow come to terms with that and also do something about that. Sidra.
So, yeah, according to me, this kind of situation, according to this pandemic, where all world is facing this, there are different kind of conspiracy theories as well related to this pandemic. Yeah, like China, like US is blaming to China. There is some kind of lab-maiden virus by the US, which is affecting the. This is lab-maiden virus by the I guess by the US against the China, or China against the US. So it's a kind of fight between the US and the China, because China was going to, but it was supposed that China was going to be the next superpower. So this kind of virus has been made in the lab by the US to defame or make the economically weak to the China. So this is one of the theory, and the theory and the another theory which is also prevailing during this situation, that this kind of pandemic is not pandemic, is a plandemic. The people are saying that this has been making some kind of plans, maybe for the to maintain the economy of the any country, as to make the other country more make the more worsening situation for them. And like there is also a theory as UK has a good strategy to combat with this disease. Like they are saying that there is need to make a herd immunity among the people, because everybody has to expose to this virus. But other countries are criticizing this kind of strategies. They are saying that they just want to let them die to their people. So there are different kind of conspiracy theories, and people are also saying that it's a kind of ill omen from the god, that people are taking the animal being a food, or violating the rights of the animals. So this is kind of different kind of conspiracy theory which was prevailing. But I think this time has also given to reevaluate yourself as well, like how, if you are being supposed to be in some place where nothing is, like there was in some hunting and gathering age, you were living in that era, or how to accumulate yourself, how to make progress for yourself. This time I have utilized this time by spending more time to study article, to work or study more research related to my subjects. So I have also got published one of my paper within this time frame. So I have utilized my time like that. Yeah, there is also some kind of issues according to being isolated yourself, but it's okay. It's a kind of deconstruct and reconstruct of your life, being a normal person, because nature is giving to you some kind of time to give time to yourself. So if we are considering talking about from the women perspective specifically, I thought the nature has come to rescue you being a woman, because since ages you are fighting for your rights. You don't have rights. You still are facing gender equality. You still fighting for the zero tolerance against gender-based violence. You don't have freedom to express yourself for your identity. You still have a kind of discrimination, or still have kind of not a good identity within the cyberspace. So this is the time, like we can because since ages we are doing these things by the women movements. So again, this is a nature-led initiative, you can say, where the women across the world can make their or raise their voices more with a more rigor, or with the more effort, with the more collective effort from all over the world. So I guess this is the right time to start women digital voices within the cyberspace by more networking nationally or internationally, and again emphasize on your rights, like again, because nature is helping you at this time. Even this world is, you can say, this is a man's world. Our patriarchy, our hegemonic notions of masculinity are still affecting the women. So this is, the nature is coming to help you out. So try to make a collaborative effort from all over the world, and carry your voices with the louder ones, and fight for your rights and claim your rights during this situation, I must say.
Well, thank you so much to both, and to everyone who joined us here today. It was really a pleasure to hear you and to learn from you. And I would then conclude this fifth Women Being talk. So we have, the next talk is on Tuesday, the 26th of May, and the topic is going to be social change. We are going to be joined by Doa Ahmed from Egypt and Aigerim from Kazakhstan. So I think that we will have another very rich conversation. For anyone who would like to get in touch with us or to know more about Women Being, you can go to womenbeing.co.uk. And to find more information about these talks, go to womenbeing.co.uk/talks. And you can get in touch by email at info@womenbeing.co.uk. Thank you so much once again. It was a pleasure to meet Rita and to see Sidra again. We've met a couple of months ago, and it was really a pleasure, and it was amazing to have you both here today. Thank you so much for helping to enrich our platform. Thank you so much.
Goodbye. Goodbye, Sidra.
Bye.
Goodbye. Thank you so much for inviting me and giving a chance again and again to have in contact with you. So it is always a pleasure to meet, and again it's an second pleasure to meet Dr. Rita and have a very fruitful conversation within this time. I'm very much honored being a student and being a nursing professional as well. So it's a great pleasure. Thank you, both of you. Goodbye.
Goodbye.